Well, hello. Hello, everyone. Hey, how's everybody doing out there? Hello. Hey, love bug. Hello, Melissa. Welcome. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late. We had a little bit of a problem in the group. Had to do some banning. Hi, Alyssa. Melissa. Welcome. Hey, Shauna. Welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? How's everyone doing? This is eclipse is hopefully things are calming down for you. I hope things are getting easier. I hope you're finding your resolutions. I hope things are smoothing out. They're trying to over here. Trying. You know. This week is Mars is in Scorpio. Some of us are still having some pretty intense movements in our lives. Are you taking action on something pretty intense right now? Is there an intense experience happening for you? I can only imagine what that might be. And so I just want to wish you all the best and hope that you've, sort of done everything you can. Yeah, Alyssa says she's incredibly stressed but trying to feel blessed. What are you stressed about, Alyssa? I think you have some Pisces placements, eh? So, Pisces. I was thinking about the North Node is there. Saturn's going retrograde in there. Neptune's on its way. Do you guys feel like we're under like an illusion in our country and in our world right now? Boy, I feel like I'm waiting for people to like awaken. I'm waiting for people to like open their eyes and become aware. I don't know how many of you feel like that, but I certainly am feeling like that. I've been feeling like that for a long time, but it's starting to get old. It sometimes happens to me. It's happened before. I sometimes get really frustrated with things like politics and other things because I'm just like, how many times do we have to say unprecedented before we expect that to happen? How many times do we have to be surprised, right? Like I'm just like, why are you surprised? This is what he does every time. So, I'm just, I know people are trying to communicate that this isn't normal, but I think most people that are sane know this isn't normal. So, for those of us that are, and I'm totally happy being called woke. So I would call myself woke. I don't have any problems with it. I've actually had people say, I guess they're like anti woke or something. I guess they're asleep. And they actually called me woke, like to my face, and I was like, "Uh," I had to like spend a whole lot of time wondering what was wrong with being woke, which I think is like I'm just like, doesn't everyone want to be woke? Um, uh, oh my gosh, Melissa, that is the funniest thing. She said she was hoping that all of the Christian nationalists were going to be zoomed up today so we could have a kinder world. I just heard about this rapture thing today, Melissa. I've seen it around and I was like, oh, I guess I didn't get the memo. Um, you know, isn't this like I think in my lifetime, this is like the third, maybe fourth time there was supposed to be a rapture. Um, I'm disappointed with you too, Melissa. Yeah, like, I mean, think about like all the different times it's happened just since, like, in my adult life. I can think about, remember in Waco, Texas, when all those people drank the Kool-Aid because it was supposed to be the rapture or something? Remember that? And then what year was it? It was it's like 2012, maybe 2011, somewhere in there. There was supposed to be a rapture. Remember that? Remember that? And then I think there was another one. I think in like 2021 or something. Yeah, I don't know. That every few years, like, they wait just long enough for everybody to forget about it and stop teasing them about it, and then they make up another date. And it's what's hilarious to me is that they usually choose like the equinox or an eclipse, which is what happened. I mean, astrologically, you know. um oh, okay. Shawnee said no, Waco was the fire with the ATF and the FBI. Okay. I thought they drank a bunch of Kool-Aid because they thought that Jesus was coming or something. Maybe that was a different cult. Um um so Melissa said especially the one that keeps trolling on my political posts. Yeah, yeah, they're kind of laughable at this point. Hey Amber, it's good to see you. Um I think you're funny, Melissa. Yeah. Oh, okay. The Kool-Aid was Jonesville. Shawnee knows. Okay. Yeah. See, I'm not that old. That's it's not that old, is it? Like, what year was that? The Kool-Aid thing when they all drank the Kool-Aid so they could go be with Jesus. I mean, I mean, there are so many. It just makes me think about. Yeah, someone drank the Kool-Aid. That's right, Melissa. And I think it was actually Kool-Aid, but it had poison in it too. And he served it, and they all laid down on pretty little mats and died, kids and all. It was like a huge mass sort of suicide in a way, but they were all in a cult. Um Oh, Shauna said she only knows that because she saw a documentary. Yeah, I used to watch documentaries like that too. And you know what's interesting is to talk about the cult of personality. And you know, that can appear on someone's astrology chart. It definitely is showing up right now in the astrology. And as Neptune and Saturn start to move apart, we start to see through that cult. Um, People start to um you know, people start to wake up. And I've been saying that the United States is a cult for about 20 plus years. Um, and people used to yell at me for saying that. Like, they would say I was wrong. They would tell me I didn't know what I was talking about, or I hadn't been to other countries, so I couldn't have that perspective. But after doing years of cult study, because I myself was in a pagan cult, actually, a witchcraft type of cult, in central Western Pennsylvania, and that cult was very harmful to me. I felt spiritually taken advantage of. I felt I guess kind of spiritually, like, sort of like something was stolen from me, but at the same time I received a lot of things because, you know, there were lots of people that came and went in that cult, and I learned lots of different things. And you know, and then there was like cult type stuff that I learned directly just from the people that sort of hold up that cult, which it still exists. um there have been people that have tried to take them to jail, uh so, you know, or press charges against them. They are what I would call a harmful cult. And what was interesting was that I went through like training classes, and one of the guys, my mentor actually, and a guy that um he's actually featured on a movie recently. where he called out the government's, President Trump's destroying of human children, um, removing children from their parents. If you haven't seen it, it's on MSNBC. And anyway, he was also my mentor. And I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, but anyway, he used to say, you have to decide if this cult is harmful or not, because everything is a cult. And he was the one that actually he was the one that actually made me think about what is a cult, what is it about. The name of the movie was Separated, and you have to find the one that's on MSNBC, okay? And he was actually really insightful, and he got me to think about that. And one of the things that I concluded was that if you're walking away feeling like something's not right in your gut, then guess what? Something's not right. that's that's what I learned. I was very young. I was probably about 25, 27. It was in the beginning of my Saturn returns. And I grew up in a Catholic church, and then later my mom was born again and tried to drag me through a cult. And and even then I was questioning it, and I wasn't sure about it. And hi Amber Sanchez, thanks for being here, so glad you're here. And so what I would say about that is that, if you're feeling something in your gut, it's probably true. And that's like one of the things that I've concluded, is that if you feel something in your gut, good, bad, or otherwise, or you have a feeling about who you're connected with, what spirit is around you, whatever it is, the fact of the matter is most of the time you're right. And I thought that was interesting, is that, like, I actually have a doctor that functions like a MD doctor that also functions on that assumption. 'Cause I told her that I was really grateful for her, because I felt like she was the only doctor that listened to me. And she said, "Well, what I find is that when someone comes to me with anything, whatever they're feeling, that if I just listen, they'll tell me exactly what it is, and then I don't have to look too hard." And so what she's really saying is that your intuition is on point. And Melissa said, I think Christian nationalism and MAGA and cults, they get sucked in and can't see the truth of what's happening, even when it smacks them in the face. It is so scary. I would agree with Melissa. And being in a cult myself, um, and being under the cult of America, um, I myself have found myself in that situation exactly. And I know how easy it can be done, and it's easy to dismiss. And this also happens in toxic relationships. Maybe this has happened to you. Um, in toxic relationships, sometimes people will just kind of dismiss the bad things that happen. But and sometimes bad things definitely happen. And you have to weigh the good with the bad, I think. And I think that it's interesting that, cults and the cult of personality and the whole nine yards is sort of unwinding in today's world. I'm hoping that at some point that humans move past the cult mentality. I don't know that we ever will. And there are some people that just kind of cash in on that or take advantage of that. Um, um, yeah, and Melissa says you see it in documentaries all the time when people escape. I can't imagine the strength it takes to get out. Yeah, when I left, I lost everyone, Melissa. I had a lot of friends and then suddenly had none. The weird part was is then like 10 years later those people left the cult. um it was weird. Um anyway, Shauna was like, "Oh my god, that exact thought about relationships was popping in my head just as you said it." Yeah, exactly, Shauna. Because like I think like sometimes we can dismiss our own intuition, our own thoughts about things, our own feelings about things. And I think that that's where we make most of our mistakes, actually. So, yeah, you're right, Melissa. Many have to leave their birth families and everything. Yep. Yep. All right. Well, it's great talking to you all and, um, having a real conversation about spirituality because this is part of spirituality because there are cults out there. There are people that will take advantage of you in all faiths, not just Christianity, but that's the most popular one. Um, but there are some even in Buddhism. I'm always flabbergasted at that. So, but they exist in Buddhism and yoga and pretty much every spiritual path. I'm sure there's some in consciousness people, like sort of new agey stuff. Um, there definitely are, and I just think that, I, and I don't, I don't claim to know how to tell if you're in one. Um, but what I will say is that if you're bothered by things, and there's more things you're bothered by than inspired by, then it's probably not a healthy relationship or community or whatever. Alyssa said literally just like how narcissists target super empathic people, cults pretty much work the same way. That's right, Alyssa. That's right. They usually actually target people with childhood trauma. Did you know that? Because people with childhood trauma are constantly looking for connection because they have an attachment wound to their parents, right? So they weren't properly connected with their parents. So then when they go to cults and things, they feel connected. And that kind of takes over what they never got. So that's, that's kind of how it works. So that's usually like MAGA and things like that. Most of those people are from really unhealthy backgrounds. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So it's the religion of cults and things like that. I wonder if I'm wondering if this is our last hoorah. Gosh, I kind of hope um that humanity starts to move beyond the narcissism and the dysfunctional families now that we've become more aware of it. I would really like to see humans move beyond that, but I don't know how long that will take or if we're actually going to do that. But I like to have hope that we are, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. Hopefully, in the next 20 years, we will see huge changes amongst humanity, overcoming and at least recognizing that we all belong. And even if we are in some sort of cult, hopefully it will be some good cults instead of crazy stuff happening like people hurting each other and taking advantage of each other. And I worry about oligarchies. And if you don't know what that word means, it's when billionaires are running the government. You can look up information about an oligarchy. It's happened in the past. It's probably happening again. So, you know, just want to say that. By the way, you can put your spiritual questions um or reading requests or anything like that, um, put that in the chat so I can answer you. Um, please put that in the chat. Yeah, I believe it's happening now. I'm glad to be part of the collective that helps peel back the layers of dysfunctional families and dysfunctional homes, um, and start to put forth, stronger things. Okay. Put forth a more resilient human being that doesn't put up with abusive behavior. And, um, when I was in the cult, there was definitely the cult leader um, doing really awful things. Havilah Collins said, I'm wondering about safety living in LA right now. Havilah, I think the whole country should be concerned about their safety. It's not just LA. LA is certainly a target, I would say, because of the only person that seems to be standing up to our fascist leader, Newsom. So I agree with that, Melissa, that empathy for others is the key to saving our country. I think that's a key to saving humanity, actually, Melissa. It's not just our country. I'm convinced that our future will be global. It will have less countries and states and that kind of thing, and that will be a global entity in the future. And I think that having empathy, understanding, I think one of the ways that we'll come to understanding is actually through technology. Because if you think about it, technology, AI, things like that will actually do a lot of things on helping us connect across the oceans, even in distance. And it will translate different languages so we can understand other people with other languages, instead of like when the colonists first came here, they just assumed the Native Americans were stupid because they didn't speak English, for instance. Okay. So like things like that will happen less. Hi, Elisa. Welcome. Have a lot. That is kind of true. Narcissists don't experience empathy, is what I've heard, Havilah said. That's kind of true. I think what actually happens is that narcissists are incredibly insecure. So, all of us are at least a little bit insecure, right? And so what will actually happen is a narcissist will be like times 10 of that. So they're so insecure that they will do behaviors that are that appear on the outside that the person doesn't have empathy. I'm not sure that's exactly true. I think that they are not connected with their ability to connect with others, which is actually really sad when you think about it, because they're not, even though they might appear to be connected to certain people, they're actually not. So so they're actually not connected to people, and so they're kind of disconnected to all other humans, and that is the basis of humanity, is to be connected to each other. We're wired for connection. We're wired as human beings to connect with each other. Okay. And I don't think that they don't have empathy. I think that they're just acting out of that insecurity all the time. So one of the ways that narcissism is created is by abusing a person, usually a child, excessively, um, to a point that the child has like zero self-esteem and doesn't have any connections with anyone. And certain personality traits are there, and then the person grows up. Usually, if you watch a narcissist, you will actually witness them behave like a child at whatever age they were mostly abused. I mean, the obvious is like Donald Trump. If you watch him, he often acts like like a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, right? Okay. And that's probably because he didn't have proper connection to his parents at that age, right? And that's what narcissism looks like. Okay. Um eh, um so like they actually will behave like whatever, they'll behave like a child. Um, that's what I always have noticed since I've been studying narcissism in the last, um, I guess, 5 or 6 years. When I really dove deep into narcissism, maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's more like 10 years now. But as I dove deeper and deeper into narcissism and mental health and childhood trauma and things like that, they kind of, you can often, um so like you guys are like describing narcissists that you have, but I'm describing all narcissists. Like they're not always smug. um they don't always have to be the center of things, Melissa, but some do. um um and and they love bomb you and make you feel special, and then they give conditions to everything they do. But I think what actually is happening there, Melissa, is that's what it looks like, but what's actually happening is they're super insecure. So they give lots of love because they're afraid you're going to leave. So one of the reasons they love bomb is because they're afraid you're going to leave. And then they give conditions to everything they do. Everything seems to have a string attached to it because they're always afraid you're going to abandon them, probably because they were abandoned or hurt or disconnected from whoever, or probably both of their parents. And that's kind of how narcissism works. Um, and Alyssa said, what about those people who weren't abused but have a genetic disposition? Alyssa, you should do your homework. The psychology world has no proof that there's a genetic disposition to any mental illness. That is a myth. We actually are not really sure if it's what we call genetic or nurture or nature. We're not sure which comes first, because you can take a set of twins and raise them in the same household, and both of them will turn out differently. And is it because one of them was treated a little differently for some reason? We're not really sure, but that is only a theory, what you're talking about there. That is a theory, Alyssa, but there is no proof of that. The one scientific theory that we are sure of is that genes show up in your DNA, right? Okay. And that the environment, and this goes for all diseases, including like cancer and heart disease and mental illnesses, possibly, that the DNA is, of course, in your system, and then the environment makes those genes express or not, depending on the environment. And that environment is greatly influenced in your childhood, right? Because you don't have really much control over what's happening to you as a child. And And then depending on how things are handled, or is your house stressful? Is it chaotic? Is there dependability? Is anyone dependable? Is there someone that will always show up? Do you feel loved? Those kinds of things. And if you're constantly in a stress mode, then the cells will probably express genetic conditions of all kinds. Okay, including mental health. So we have had people that were children of schizophrenic people taken away at birth, and they don't always express things like schizophrenia and NPD. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So we're still not 100% sure. Some science, the science by Dr. Bessel van der Kerk was presented to the U.S. government back, I think it was in the late 1990s, like 1998 is what I seem to remember. It's in the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And his scientific work, his research showed that at the root of all mental illnesses, whether it be MPD or schizophrenia or bipolar or ADHD, that they all, at the root of them, are connected to childhood trauma, attachment wounds, childhood trauma of any kind. And it doesn't always have to be like what you think of as big T trauma, which is, like being beat with a stick or whatever. It could be other things. It could be other things that happened to you. Maybe no one was home. Maybe no one was there. Maybe that's actually neglect is one of the most hurtful forms of abuse that there is. Actually, scientifically, we've proven that neglect is one of the worst. And if you grew up in an alcoholic home, hate to break it to you, but you have childhood trauma. If your parents were divorced, you have childhood trauma. If your parents pressured you because you didn't get an A, that's childhood trauma. So there's a lot of different kinds of trauma in there. And if someone has significant trauma, the more significant the trauma, the worse the condition. And I think things like MPD can be explained if you look at the person's astrology chart. A lot of times you'll be able to see how they will express certain traumas. You'll be able to predict if they'll be MPD or schizophrenic or other listed, even bipolar, ADHD, all of that, including like oppositional ODD and all that. So I'm not sure the psychology. Once you start to study it, I was fascinated at what they know to be true and what they're not really sure about, where there's a lot of things that psychology does not know. But we do know that everyone with a mental health disorder has trauma. That's the one thing we know for sure. So, I know a person that lives with the MPD, and they told me that that they chose to split their personality because they felt it kept them safer from their narcissistic mother. So, just a thing. Yeah, I think it's probably a mixture, and I'm not sure it's genetics. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. And Melissa's saying exactly childlike behavior. It even fits when they don't get the credit and escalates when they think they deserve it. Exactly. 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 And I agree, Alyssa, that it's programming and genetics. Melissa said, I did a genome test and it came back with depression as one of the hereditary traits. Okay. If your parent had trauma and it changed their DNA, that's what we're saying, Melissa. We don't know. We're not sure. It could be that because let's say you have a family of alcoholics, that let's just say your great 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 grandfather was an alcoholic and he abused his wife and she experienced a lot of depression, and then that got written into her system and she had a baby, and that baby also experienced depression because of the alcoholism in the family. And then it just kind of keeps getting written in the DNA system and getting passed down. That's very possible, Melissa. We're not 100% sure what writes the DNA. We're not 100% sure as to why that happens. Alyssa said that's something that I'm currently discussing with a psychiatrist, so that's interesting. I'll have to dig some more. I've always known about nature versus nurture, and that's a great debate. I've just wondered about those with a strong genetic history, not necessarily a family history. Yeah, I don't completely there does seem to be some genetic thing, particularly with schizophrenia. That's the most popular one. That's the one most researched, Alyssa. There does seem to be a genetic component to that disease. Um, and we're pretty sure it has to have both elements. It has to have the genetic and the nature part of it. There's also seems to be some treatments that can help schizophrenia that has been found in other countries. Okay. Yeah, Melissa, it's a great book. You should definitely learn it. You should definitely read it. It's really an interesting book. Because you'll find out how what happened was Dr. Bessel van der Kolk presented his evidence to the United States government and they declined it because the pharmaceutical companies paid them off. Because if he found the cure for mental health things, pharmaceutical companies that prescribe mental health um, medications would go out of business. Yeah. And I'm not sure psychiatrists and psychologists know that. So Melissa said, I think both my biological brothers and I have mental health issues due to childhood trauma. Of course you do, Melissa. But you can deal with it in different ways. You know, medications is, and that's the other myth is that you can't fix it, is that you can't change it, and that you're just that the brain is just forever going to suffer from that childhood trauma. And this really pissed me off when I was in my 30s because I started to recognize as I came out, I think I was probably closer to like 33, 34, 35, somewhere in there. I started to recognize that you could actually heal and sort of push through or overcome a lot of childhood trauma and become a different person and change the way you were behaving and change the way you were perceiving the world, change your mindset, things like this. And uh and and it angered me because as a child and most of my 20s, everybody just told me I was doomed for mental health because how terrible my family and my childhood was. They just told me I would be doomed forever. And I believed that always for years and years and years that there was something inherently wrong with me because of my childhood. So of course that made me very angry at my family, and that I went through a lot of stuff around that. And then when I started to heal the trauma, when I started to move through the trauma and really work through it, and it started to become like what Dr. Bessel van der Kolk talks about as sort of um, just sort of this thing. So like when I talk about the trauma that I've experienced, It's just sort of this thing that happened in the past. It's just sort of this thing that happened, but it no longer controls or influences me. I mean, I'm sure not all of it has been, but a lot of it has been sort of unwound out of me. And I just don't have I can see a huge difference in myself now at 50 years old compared to, let's say, when I was 20. When I was 20, I would have emotional breakdowns on a regular basis. I was often suicidal. I was a cutter. I hated my life. I did everything I could to sabotage it. And then I just, by the time I was about 30, 31, 32, 33, I started to heal it or move through it. And I did it in the ways that Dr. Bessel van der Kolk outlines in a way to heal it. I went to a therapist. I did yoga. I changed my mindset. And I started to unwind it out of my body. And for years and years and years, I did yoga every day for at least a half an hour, if not an hour or more. And I would sometimes I used to work 3 to 11, so I'd get up every morning and do it. And I would do yoga. And let me just say, I would cry. I would cry, and I didn't even know why I was crying. And that's because, and my therapist directed me to just allow the crying, not to stop it, not to judge it, to just allow it. And so I did. And I also was doing Reiki on myself every day. And the more I healed, the more I realized that I was actually healing myself. Now, I did this before I ever read The Body Keeps the Score. It was nothing more than intuitive wellness. I am an intuitive healer. I am trauma informed. Yes, I coach people and help people heal from trauma all the time. So it's it kind of pisses me off when psychologists don't encourage people or tell people that they can heal it, because you can heal trauma. Okay. Melissa said we did the ACEs test. Yeah, I have every single one of the ACEs, Melissa. You know how there's like, I think there might be 15, 20 questions. I have every single one of them. Every single one. Yep. Numerous for most of them. Yeah, you can read my story. It's in my book, Divine Androgyne. Yeah, Alyssa's like, I can definitely see the connection between how people express their trauma and astrology. Right. So if you just look at the shadow of certain things, like Mars is very much about anger and conflict. So that person's probably, if a person has Mars on the ascendant or in one of its ruling signs like Scorpio or Aries, they're probably going to express it through anger. They're probably going to be pissed off. So where someone that has more Pisces placements will probably be very depressed and sad, and someone that's Gemini might split their personalities, and someone that's Scorpio might be a little bit less empathetic and a little bit more narcissistic, along with Leo, Aries, and some of the other ones. I think any sign can be narcissistic. And I think it's just a matter of what placements you have and how your chart is playing out. And everybody's chart plays out in shadow or light. And I think when you start to look at your astrology chart, you can start to find your childhood trauma wound into you, especially if you find parts of your astrology chart that you're expressing in shadow, or that you're not expressing at all. And those things are usually blocked by something, some sort of childhood trauma. So that a lot of times I use astrology to help us work through the childhood trauma, to find the trauma, find out how it's expressing for you, and then move through it. Childhood trauma is really powerful and can really change who you are. Because if you think about it, your astrology chart is your authentic expression of who you are. And if you are functioning in a stress state, in a traumatic state, you're not going to be authentically who you are. Right? Melissa said, my hubby and I did everything opposite of our biological parents to give our kids the best life so they didn't have a traumatic childhood. My son still had bipolar and major depression. We fought it with everything we had and we still lost him to suicide. I'm sorry about that, Melissa. But I would say that it could also be from our culture. And I did everything opposite, but my son is still, um, I would say, mentally and emotionally affected. I wouldn't say that he's like a narcissist or suffers. I don't usually use labels like that. I don't use labels like bipolar and things like that. Because I think it boxes you in and keeps you, um, yeah, in a certain way. And so, uh, if you believe you have it, then you will have it. And then it just kind of gets bigger and gets out of control. Because I definitely went through that in my 20s. It did not serve me to have a diagnosis. I had tons of diagnoses. Um, so, just saying that it could have also been from our culture influence, Melissa. I'm sorry about your son. Shauna says a great book about narcissism is Out of the Fog. Actually, Melissa, you probably broke a lot of them. I just think it's probably impossible to break all of them. Like, I know I certainly didn't. I did everything opposite my mom did, for the most part. And I still caused my son trauma. I'm pretty sure of it. No one's perfect. It happens, especially, I hadn't completely healed my trauma. So we tend to pass things on if we haven't completely healed ourselves as parents. And that's something a lot of people talk about. Um, Shauna says, since I started coaching with you, I stopped all medications. Okay, Shauna. I hope your therapist helped you with that. You got to be careful of that. Sometimes when we come off of the medications, they can kind of send us down a nasty spiral. Yeah, I'm sure you are doing everything you can, Melissa, and I wouldn't think that your son's suicide is your fault or anything like that. I wouldn't say that. I think you did the best you could, and while your son still suffered, there was probably also a cultural influence. Melissa said I had it all figured out, or so I thought. I just pretended like it didn't happen and packed it away. And that was probably a little bit of the mistake, huh, Melissa? And I think we all do that to some extent because we're not really sure what to do with it. And I think that's why it's important that we have this conversation that we're having right now, right? When we lost our son, I completely broke mentally because I had never really dealt with any of my trauma, I bet. So it was like one trauma on top of another. Now I have no choice but to face it and deal with it. I can't get it packed back in. I have an amazing therapist who's helping me deal with PTSD. Good. That's great, Melissa. Good. Keep working with your therapist. Yep. My therapist said the same thing about crying. Yeah, it's super important to just allow crying and not like, don't get caught up in it. Don't like try to make a story about it even if you don't know why you're crying. Don't try to make up a story. Don't try to fill in the blanks. Just allow it to be. Shauna said Hollis is amazing trauma coach. I'm healing, highly recommended. I absolutely love them. You're welcome, Shauna. I hope you're doing okay. Melissa said, you were saying something about shadows. Is that shadow work? Yeah. Everybody has shadow, and that's like the 8th house, the 12th house. Everybody has shadow they're working on. I have shadow. I still have shadow. I still worry about things. I worry incessantly, like kind of crazily about people that I love. I sometimes have a hard time. I judge people sometimes. Not like judge like for mental health or whatever. Sometimes people will do things and I don't know how to make sense of it. So I'll assume I make the judgment that a lot of people are harmful or whatever, and I don't always know for sure that they are. So I know that I do that. But that's out of response probably from being in a couple of cults and getting involved with people that haven't been trustworthy, and then not sure who to trust sometimes. Not sure of my ability um to um make a good decision about someone's personality. I am grateful when my spirit guides make it very clear. Recently there was a person that I did a little bit of like online, like built their website type of thing. Um and then they started to show some signs of some untrustworthy behavior, and I kind of ignored it a little bit and just kind of was summed it up to um, that I was misunderstanding it and I was kind of gaslighting myself a little bit. And then the more we went on, some other incidences happened, and I just got more and more suspicious. And now, since the solar eclipse has become very clear, I actually caught her red-handed, flat out lying to me. And and I, 20 years ago, I would have dismissed that. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you do that. I even had a ex-wife that flat out lied to me, and I allowed the relationship to go on beyond that, and I shouldn't have, because what she lied about made no freaking sense at all. And the fact that she lied about it was manipulative and trying to come between my son and I, which I've never been able to forget about it. I just can't forget. And that's what happened in our relationship. I just constantly would question her, and I would constantly wonder. And now we're broken up, but what I realized is that was the beginning of the end of our relationship. And instead of me trying to give her a second chance because my friend suggested it, I should have actually just ended it right then and there. Um, because that kind of lie, there was no reason for her to lie. She made up a lie about my son's girlfriend. It was just totally stupid. She essentially said that my son's girlfriend stole a hula hoop from me, and she didn't. And then later on, someone returned the hula hoop, and I had accidentally left it at an event. And so that's just like my proof that, you have to learn to listen to yourself, and I wanted to leave her after that, but I didn't. I called a friend, and she encouraged me to wait, to take time, to think about it more, because we had a long LTR at the time, a long-term relationship. And I guess she thought it was forgivable, but what I would say is it's not. Because she was trying to come between me and my son, and I think anytime a person tries to come between a mother and a child is I don't think you can let that go. At least not in my world. And so these are examples of, times that we should listen to ourselves. And let me just tell you, I still don't always listen to myself. And every time I screw it up, I just recently screwed it up. I didn't listen to myself about a doctor and was sick and suffering from vertigo for 6 weeks because I didn't listen to myself, because I listened to the doctor instead of me. So I'm just going to say, like, sometimes we just need to listen to ourselves, and I encourage all of you to do just that. Like, if you don't take anything away from tonight's wisdom show, is that you definitely want to listen to yourself, and don't gaslight yourself. Gosh, we gaslight the hell out of ourselves. Does everybody know what gaslighting is? Melissa said my son was a major empath too. It's like he always felt the pain of the world around him. Yeah, he might have been had some Pisces placements or something, Melissa. I would almost bet. And then, and then what you want to consider is that, maybe there was some other stuff going on, like maybe at school or in social circle. Um, so Alyssa said, how do you feel about numerology and how it can tie into our spirituality, life path, and stuff? Um, I actually I had a friend that was a numerologist, and she did a reading for me, and I felt like it was pretty accurate. I don't think they do so much of like weekly sort of predictions or whatever, but they do like numerology, which is like they can tell you a lot about like your life path number and things like that. Yeah, I think it's totally valid. I think it's a great form of a way of getting to know yourself. I think I had my first numerology reading. I must have been about 23, 24. And then I probably had another one in my early 30s. Yeah, I've known people that do it. I haven't I learned how to do it from my one friend. She showed me how to do it, but I'm not big on numbers. But I know that some people are. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. It's just not my thing. That's all. But I think it's a totally awesome thing to do or try. I think it's a really powerful way to tap in to to tap in another way to tap in. I think it's totally valid. I think numerology has its place for sure. I think it's mostly used to understand yourself or your life path. Philip Doherty, I just seen your message. Can you are you still there? Hopefully you're still there. If you're still there, just comment. Please put your reading requests or questions in the chat, you guys. Just, as I start to close up for the night, I've done my best to be here for you guys tonight. I will say that has been a really exhausting weekend. I was at an event and I pretty much did about probably about 40 or 50 readings Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, Melissa said, what does shadow mean exactly? Shadow is usually the dark part of us, the part of us that we don't want to talk about. That's usually what I'm referring to. Um, uh, oh yeah, Shauna, can you retype it? It might have got lost. If you made a request or a question, please retype it. And I haven't answered it yet. What so shadow is often like everybody has at least some. And it'll show up in your 8th house in astrology. A lot of times in your Saturn returns, you end up doing a lot of shadow work. And it's essentially the part of you don't want to talk about. It's the part of you that feels shame. Shame is usually the key indicator. Shame is one of the lowest vibrating emotions. So if you have shame about things, if you experience that emotion, shame, um, it's an indicator of shadow underneath of there somewhere. It's usually childhood trauma, and or some sort of trauma from the past. So I would just say that like that anytime you find shame around, you know that that's your shadow. That's usually a clear indicator, but shame can also show up in anger, depression. A lot of times depression is around shame. Um And I would say that shadow work, there's books, all kinds of books. I'll do shadow work and coaching with you. I was There's been a bigger and bigger interest in shadow work, and I've thought about doing like shadow work workshops, and or even making a guide, like sort of like I have a guide for meeting your spirit guides, a guide for figuring out your astrology chart. I could make a guide about um identifying and starting to work through your trauma. That's, I suppose, I mean, sorry, work through your shadow, like a shadow work guide. I thought that would be kind of interesting, and I could probably make a class about it too that goes much deeper than just a guide. And maybe we could even use the guide in the class. Shadow work is usually very intense. It's not usually something you want to do in a group setting. It's probably something you want to do with like one or two trusted people, like a therapist, maybe a coach. I do recommend my coaching to go along with therapy. So, like, let's say you see your therapist on Tuesdays, you could see me on Thursday or Friday. Kind of helps you bridge the gap before you see your therapist again. And coaching is different than therapy. So, therapy is one approach, and coaching has a different approach. It's usually a little bit more direct, and usually we're very clear about pointing out the trauma and making suggestions on how to work through it rather than waiting for you to figure it out. So, a lot of times with therapists, they'll wait for people to figure things out. um, they'll make suggestions or try to guide them to it, but they won't actually say, that could be trauma right there. Um, some do, but a lot don't. And then they won't necessarily, they'll suggest pills and medications and such, but they won't necessarily say, how about you try doing yoga or Reiki on yourself or whatever. What I'm going to suggest is all going to be spiritual things for you. Okay. Um, yeah, Melissa, I have a hard time trusting people too. Yes, Melissa, now I have Bright Hawk. Yes, exactly. Um, okay, Amber's saying anything for me. I got a yes, so hold on a second, Amber. Amber, I'm seeing a mug, a fairly large, like what's it called, a stein, like a beer mug type of thing, and it's bubbling over. It looks like we're at a party, like he's trying to do like a cheers. It feels like a celebration. It feels like a masculine energy, and he's trying to say like congratulations or cheers or celebration for something you might have a beer for. Um oh, and now I got a chicken. Looks like a cute little chicken sitting on a nest or something. Um this has to do with that same male entity, Amber. I'm not sure that chicken is real. It could be a stuffed chicken. Could be. I guess it could be real. Um, I will tell her that, Melissa. Alyssa said, I just started to dig into it because I'm always seeing synchronicities everywhere and so often, usually numbers. Okay. I think you should totally do it, Alyssa. If you feel called to it, you should do it. Like I said, listen to your gut, right? Yeah. Get like a numerology. There's a couple of great books out there. Just look for the ones that are rated like 4 and 5 stars. I would go for those. Yeah, exactly, Alyssa. Yeah. Sounds like you found your life path and it's pretty close. Yep. Shauna said, I have a question for Corey. I spoke with his mom the other day. Uh, when I did the death reading, you said that part of his chart said he was a catalyst and it was supposed to affect both me and his mom. Is there something I should know about this? Yeah, didn't I also say, Shauna, he's just now, Corey is actually reminding me that I also said that his mom would change over time and that she was just angry at you because she was angry about Corey's death and that eventually she would probably make peace with you and that he was gonna, and he's like, now it's happening. Exactly what I predicted is coming true. That's what he's saying. So I don't know, go back and listen to the recording. Have you listened to it recently? Um that's what he's saying to me. He's pointing at me and saying, "You said it." So I must have said something about his mom. Yeah, a lot of times I can see a person's influence of their mother and father in their chart. I can see like if the parents will be abusive or whatever. And I think he's saying that I said that it would be a catalyst to heal his mother and you, probably. Yeah. Okay. Amber, I didn't get the whatever symbol you put in there. So I don't know if that's validation or what. Um, she's even sending me some of his belongings. Okay. Good, Jonna. Good. That's great. Yeah, that's what you told me the other day. So Cindy says anything for me. Cindy Flores. Cindy, is something going on with a TV or electronic? Looks like to be a screen of some sort. I, I think it might be a TV, but I guess it could be something else. Something sort of acting kind of crazy or weird because somebody says they're trying to send you a sign through it. Let me continue to watch. They're also giving me the number 3. A headache. Feels like, did someone die of a heart thing, a stress heart thing, Cindy? Um, we'll come back to the TV, Cindy. I'm not sure I'm interpreting it right. But did someone pass from a heart thing? Feels stressful. Um, but they're showing me the pain in the heart. Yeah. Oh, you're having headaches. Okay, that makes sense. And then yes to the heart problems. Okay. Let me go back to the TV and see if we can see what they're trying to say. Ah, it's a dream. Cindy, are you having dreams? Feels like something's trying to come through on your dreams. There's some sort of validation trying to happen about your dreams. Okay. Oh, they're having a hard time coming through your dreams. Are you taking some sort of medication, Cindy? Like to sleep or something, or maybe for your headaches? Um, is it putting you to sleep and then you're not dreaming or not remembering your dreams? It's probably from the medication. So, um, yeah, Cindy says I'm not remembering my dreams, right? So, yeah. Are you taking some sort of medication? A lot of medications will sort of take out your dreams, by the way, you guys. in case you didn't know that. This is one of my biggest issues with. It's actually why dreaming is actually really good for you, by the way, for your brain. And dream specialists don't like sleep medications because um, uh, they don't like you to take like sleeping pills and stuff because like on a regular basis because they cut out your dreams. And then um, people it's not usually the dream state is the REM state, REM, and if you don't have a certain amount of that every night, it can kind of make you depressed. It can kind of mess you up. So but yeah, Cindy says she's having a hard time sleeping. Okay, well, Cindy, maybe work on that. Maybe try what I would suggest is like try some if it's okay with your doctor to have like herbal teas like chamomile tea, um or rose tea. There's lots of like sleepy time teas and things like that. Try to go to bed at the same time every night. Maybe do a little yoga nidra before you go to sleep. Somebody's trying to talk to you through your dreams and you're not hearing it. So just that's what they're saying. Okay? Whoever died of a heart attack. That person. Anything for me about my disability? It was denied and they said they didn't have records for my therapist, but I know they did because I had confirmed it. I have an appointment on 10/9 to talk to them. Okay, it's normal to have to appeal, Melissa. Your guides are telling me that you're in the normal process. So you probably are going to need, they're telling me 3 times. You're going to have to apply 3 different times. So, so just be prepared to have to do it 3 times. I think that's like the best way to approach disability. If you know you're going to have to do it a couple of times, it's a little bit easier, right? So just it's pretty normal for it to take that long, Melissa. Melissa, it's normal to take that long. Look, Shauna, it took her 3 years. See? I know my ex-husband, he did the same thing. He applied and then he gave up for a long time, even though everybody told him it was going to take 2 or 3 applications. So just know it's going to take 2 or 3 times, and just do it. Just do it, do it, do it. Just know that it's going to take. They just want to make sure that you're serious, I guess. I don't know why they do it. I think it's a crock of crap, but Shauna said the back pay is nice. So if they once they do finally approve you, they'll pay you for all the time that they should have been paying you but didn't. So okay. So I don't know why. Our country is broke. See, Alyssa said I'm still working on it 15 years later. It's crazy. Yeah, that's all I hear from anyone that is on it, Melissa. Most people say that they applied for it numerous times, and your guides are saying at least 3 times. So, okay. All right. So I think I've answered everyone's questions, and I've had a really long weekend and a pretty intense last 6 weeks, to be honest with y'all. I've had some really intense experiences, and I'm trying to get myself back together, get myself back on now. So just hang in there. Hopefully, maybe Melissa, you'll get it when Saturn goes direct. Saturn's the system. Saturn goes direct in November, so maybe it'll come in just in time. Okay, hang in there. Good luck. I hope you get it. I'm sure you need it. So thanks for sending me prayers, and I think we all need to pray for each other and have empathy for each other's experience. A lot of us are struggling right now in a variety of ways, and mine's just not even about rest as much, Alyssa, as I think. Being able to, like, for me, I know it sounds weird, but being able to, like, relax and just, like, not have to think about, like, work or anything. Just, like, relax and just be present. And I think that's, like, the biggest thing. I think, like, for me, if I'm too sick or whatever to get my work done, I get really kind of down and a little depressed. So, uh, so just, that's just kind of my experience. I know it's weird, but it definitely happens. Melissa Shauna said that if you have an emergency situation, they can file it under dire need. That's helpful. So it is possible that it comes in when Saturn goes direct. Saturn will be going direct around November, I'm pretty sure it is. And that'll probably help. I think it might be actually more like Thanksgiving, but I like to be able to get things done. I've haven't been able to exercise for a few weeks. I have been able to do yoga, thank God. So just give yourself a break. Take this breather in the astrology to recover from whatever you've been through over the eclipse and anything else that's been going on for you. So just hold on to yourself, take care of yourself. Thank you all for your love and support. And I feel for all of you, and I appreciate all of your loyalty and all of you tuning in every week to this show. Sarah won't be doing the show tomorrow. If I'm feeling up for it, I'll go ahead and jump on. But I'm not really sure at this time. And I hope that all of you have a beautiful and amazing week, and make sure you catch Mama Cole's show on Thursday. I'm pretty sure she'll be up for her show. I think she's doing better now. So we survived the eclipse. And me and her are both Virgos, so we both experienced it pretty much on our sun. And that can create a lot of discourse in your life. But we've made it. We survived, and here we are. So that's what astrology's for. Anytime I feel frustrated with the government, I try to listen to astrology because it helps. And there's even political astrologers that you can read and listen to, and I find that to be really helpful. So if you're struggling in that regard, I encourage you to do that, and I encourage you to look at your own astrology. It's a great distraction, number one, and number two, I feel that it gives you a little bit of hope, right? Try to find your hope in all the bright corners that you can in the consciousness movement and in spirituality. And I encourage you all to give yourself lots of love. Be good to yourselves. Be good to the people you love. I will tell Sarah that you said hi, Melissa. She just has an important doctor's appointment that's a long drive, and she's not going to be able to get back in time. That's all. Okay. Well, Melissa, I think it's still on YouTube. That's probably the best place to watch it, Melissa. Thanks for liking. Thanks for commenting and subscribing to my channels. I appreciate all of you, and I look forward to seeing you all every week. And thanks for tuning in. My heart goes out to you during this restful time after the eclipse. It's time to recover before the next movements, and so allow these times for the universe to hold you in comfort, love, and blessings. May you all be blessed with beautiful things, and may you figure out what to do next. Good night.